You ever feel like you need to know something really important, but just the thought of digging through, like, dense official documents makes your eyes totally glaze over?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's where we come in. Today, we're going to tackle a document that, okay, on the surface, it might seem incredibly dry. The U.S. State Department's latest visa bulletin. This one's for June 2025.
Right.
But trust me, if you know anyone trying to navigate U.S. immigration, this thing, it's basically the inside scoop you really need.
Exactly. Think of it like this. If you're planning a kind of road trip across the whole immigration landscape, the visa bulletin, that's your real-time traffic report.
Good analogy.
Yeah, it shows you where the congestion is, which lanes are actually moving, and maybe when you can make your next move. So our goal today is really to decode this report, pull out the crucial bits, and figure out what it means for people's immigration journeys.
Okay, so lay it out for us. What is the visa bulletin in a nutshell?
Well, simply put, it's a monthly summary of how many immigrant visas are actually available. For June 2025, it gives us two key sets of dates.
Okay.
You've got final action dates. Those tell you when a visa can actually be issued.
Right.
And then there are dates for filing applications, which basically indicate when you can start submitting all your paperwork.
Right.
Now, a really, really important point. If you're already here in the U.S. and you're applying to adjust your status, you have to check the USCIS website.
Okay.
Yeah, they decide which of these two charts you should be using for that process.
Okay, so two sets of dates, depends on your situation.
All right.
And these apply to specific types of visas, yeah.
Precisely. We're focusing on what they call preference immigrant visas. These mainly fall into two big buckets. Those sponsored by family members, U.S. citizens or permanent residents, and those based on a job offer from a U.S. employer. And there are annual limits set by law for each of these categories.
It sounds pretty complex. How does the government actually decide, who gets these limited visas and when?
It really all comes down to the priority date. Think of it like your place in line.
Okay.
This is generally the date when that initial immigration petition was properly filed for you. So each month, the consular officers out at the embassies and USCIS here in the States, they report on applicants who are qualified and ready.
Got it.
Then, visa numbers get allocated based on those priority dates, pulled as first, basically, taking into account the demand they've seen up to a certain cutoff. In this case, it was May 2nd for this June bulletin.
So what happens if there are just, way more people in line than there are visas available for a certain category or maybe from a specific country?
Yeah, that's when a category or country gets called oversubscribed.
Right.
So, to manage this, the State Department sets up a final action date, this date. It marks the priority date of the very last person in that oversubscribed category who could get a visa with the numbers available that month.
Okay.
It's also worth knowing that sometimes these final action dates can actually move backward.
Really? Backward.
Oh. Yeah, we call that retrogression. It usually happens if there's suddenly a big surge in applicants ready to go. And, in extreme cases, if an annual limit gets hit, a whole category might become temporarily unavailable.
Wow. Okay, that's the big picture then. Let's zoom in on the family-sponsored visas. What are the main categories we should know about here?
Sure. So the Immigration Nationality Act, specifically Section 203A, it lays these out. First, you have F1. That's for unmarried adult sons and daughters of U.S. citizens.
Okay.
Then there's the F2 preference. It's split into F2A for spouses and minor children of lawful permanent residents, and F2B, which is for the unmarried adult sons and daughters of permanent residents.
Gotcha.
Then F3 is for married sons and daughters of U.S. citizens. And finally, F4 covers siblings of adult U.S. citizens. Each one gets a specific slice of the visa pie each year.
And there's also that rule, right, about no single country sort of dominating the system.
Absolutely. There's a per country limit. Right now, it's set at 7% of the total annual limit for both family and employment visas combined. And there's also a 2% limit for dependent areas. Right now, we consistently see higher demand from certain countries, think China mainland born, India, Mexico, and the Philippines. They're pretty much always oversubscribed.
Right.
When that happens, there's this process called visa prorating under Section 202 of the law that can kick in if it looks like a country might go over that 7% limit.
All right, let's get down to it. The final action dates for family-sponsored cases in June 2025. How do we actually read this chart?
Okay, so this chart tells us who can actually get an immigrant visa in June. If you see a specific date listed for your category and country, it means only applicants with a priority date earlier than that date are eligible right now for the visa. If you see a C, that means the category is current. So basically, everyone who's qualified can move forward, doesn't matter when their petition was filed.
And you?
U means unauthorized. So yeah, no visas are being issued in that category at the moment.
Okay, so for the F1 category, those unmarried adult kids of U.S. citizens, what's it looking like?
Well, for most countries, and also for China mainland born and India, the final action date is June 8th, 2016.
Okay, 2016.
Yeah. Now here's where it gets interesting. For Mexico, that date is way earlier, April 22nd, 2005. And for the Philippines, it's July 15th, 2012.
Wow.
Yeah, it really shows you how different the wait times can be depending on where you're from, just reflecting the demand.
Definitely. And what about F2A spouses and minor children of permanent residents? That's got to be a big one.
Huge category. For F2A, we're seeing a final action date of January 1st, 2022 for most places, except Mexico, that's May 15th, 2021.
Okay.
Now, the Bulletin actually has a special note here. It's a bit technical, but basically, for June, F2A visas that are exempt from the per-country limit are going out to people from all countries with priority dates before May 15th, 2021.
Right.
But the F2A visas that are subject to the per-country limit, those are for all countries except Mexico, with dates between May 15, 2021 and January 1st, 2022. All the F2A visas for Mexico are exempt.
Huh. Okay, that's a bit of a tricky distinction. What about the other family categories then?
Sure. For F2B that's unmarried adult children of permanent residents, the final action date is September 22nd, 2016 for most areas, China and India. Mexico, back to January 1st, 2006. Philippines, February 8th, 2012.
Okay.
Moving to F3 married children of U.S. citizens, we see June 22nd, 2011 for most, China, India, Mexico, January 15, 2001, Philippines, September 22nd, 2003.
Still seeing those big Mexico-Philippines differences.
Exactly. And finally, F4 siblings of adult U.S. citizens is January 1st, 2008 for most, China, India. Mexico is June 15th, 2006, and the Philippines is June 1st, 2005. You can really see the different demand levels playing out.
Those dates definitely paint a clear picture of the backlogs. Now, the Bulletin also has that other chart, the dates for filing family-sponsored visa applications. What's the point of this one again?
Right, so this chart basically tells applicants when they can start the process of gathering and sending in their documents to the National Visa Center, the NVC.
The paperwork stage.
Exactly. If your priority date is earlier than the date listed here, you can get started on that once the NVC gives you the green light. A C here means you can file no matter your priority date.
But there's a catch, right?
There's a crucial catch. You absolutely must check the USCIS website.
Okay.
Check their site to see if they're letting people already in the U.S. who are adjusting status use this dates for filing chart, or if those folks have to stick with the usually more restrictive final action dates chart.
Got it. Very important check. So for F1, the dates for filing are generally later than the final action dates, which makes sense. It's the earlier step.
Yeah.
What are some key dates here?
Okay, F1 dates for filing. September 1st, 2017 for most areas, China and India. Mexico is April 1st, 2006, and the Philippines is April 22nd, 2015.
Right.
Now for F2A, here's some good news. The dates for filing are actually current for everywhere.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it means eligible F2A folks can start filing their applications right away. Doesn't matter what their priority date is.
That's definitely encouraging for F2A applicants. What about the other categories on this dates for filing chart?
Let's see, F2B, the date is January 1st, 2017 for most, China, India. Mexico is April 1st, 2007. Philippines, October 1st, 2013.
Okay.
For F3, we see July 22nd, 2012 for most, China, India. Mexico's June 15th, 2001. Philippines, September 22nd, 2004. And finally, F4, it's June 1st, 2008 for most, China, India. Mexico, December 1st, 2006. And the Philippines, January 1st, 2008.
Okay, we've definitely navigated the family-sponsored side. Let's switch gears now to employment-based preference visas. What are the different categories we're looking at here?
Right, employment. So Section 203B of the INA lays these out. First, you've got EB1. That's for priority workers, people with, extraordinary ability, outstanding professors, researchers, certain multinational execs.
The top tier.
Pretty much. Second is EB2 for professionals with advanced degrees or people with exceptional ability. Third is EB3, which covers skilled workers, professionals, and also other workers. And that last subcategory has a pretty tight annual limit, just 10,000 visas.
Only 10,000, okay.
Yeah. Fourth is EB4 for certain special immigrants. And fifth is EB5, that's the investment visa for employment creation. It has specific set-asides for investments in rural areas, high unemployment areas, and infrastructure projects.
Gotcha.
And like the family side, each of these gets a certain percentage of the total number of employment-based visas available worldwide each year.
And just like family visas, I assume there are final action dates for these employment categories too?
Exactly right. Same principle. This chart shows when an applicant's priority date in an employment category is current for the final visa processing steps.
Yeah.
Again, C means current, U means unauthorized.
Okay, so looking at EB1, the priority workers, what are the final action dates for June 2025?
It's actually current for almost everywhere, the exceptions. China mainland born, which has a final action date of November 8th, 2022.
Okay.
And India, the date of February 15th, 2022.
So even in the top tier, there are significant backlogs for China and India.
Definitely shows that. Now, EB2 advanced degrees, exceptional ability. The final action date is October 15th, 2023 for most areas, and also for Mexico and the Philippines. However, for China mainland born, it's way back at December 1st, 2020.
Wow.
And for India, it's January 1st, 2013. So yes, substantial waiting times there too.
Okay. Moving on to EB3, including that other workers subcategory.
Right. For the main EB3 category, skilled workers professionals, the final action date is February 8th, 2023 for most areas, Mexico and the Philippines. China mainland born is November 22nd, 2020. India, April 15th, 2013.
Okay. And the other workers?
That category, with its stricter limit, has a final action date of June 22nd, 2021 for most areas, Mexico, Philippines. For China mainland born, it's April 1st, 2017. And for India, it's the same as the main EB3, April 15th, 2013.
I see a note here specifically about the other workers category and NICARA. What's the impact there?
Yeah, NICARA. Stands for the Nicaraguan Central American Relief Act. Basically, a provision in that old law says that once the EB3 other workers final action date hits a certain point, the number of available other worker visas can be reduced by up to 5,000 each year.
Why?
It's to help offset adjustments of status granted under NICARA way back when. This has been happening since fiscal year 2002, actually. And for fiscal year 2025, they estimate the reduction will be about 150 visas.
Huh. That's a fascinating detail. A reminder that old laws can still affect things today.
Absolutely. It shows how interconnected everything is.
So what about the EB4 and EB5 categories, final action dates?
Okay, UB4, which includes certain special immigrants and certain religious workers, the final action date is listed as U, unauthorized, across the board.
Okay, so nothing moving there right now. EB5.
For the main unreserved EB5 category, it's current for all areas except China mainland born, which is January 22nd, 2014, and India, which is May 1st, 2019. But interestingly, those set-aside categories within EB5, rural high unemployment infrastructure, they're all listed as current for everyone.
Okay, that's good news for those specific investment areas. So again, we also have the dates for filing for employment-based visas. What are some key takeaways from that chart for June?
All right, dates for filing, employment-based. For EB1, it's current for most areas, Mexico, Philippines. But for China mainland born, it's January 1st, 2023, and India is April 15th, 2022.
Okay.
For EB2, November 15th, 2023 for most, Mexico, Philippines. China is January 1st, 2021. India is February 1st, 2013.
Still seeing those big India-China differences.
Yep. EB3, March 1st, 2023 for most, Mexico, Philippines. China, December 22nd, 2020. India, June 8th, 2013. And the other workers category follows the same EB3 filing dates.
Got it.
EB4 and the religious workers both have a filing date of February 1st, 2021 everywhere. And finally, the EB5 unreserved category, current for most, Mexico, Philippines. But China's filing date is October 1st, 2016, and India's is April 1st, 2022. And just like the final action dates, those EB5 set-asides, all current for filing too.
Okay, we've covered the two main routes, family and employment. Now, let's talk about the diversity immigrant category, or DV, the Green Card Lottery. What's the basic goal of this program?
Where the DV lottery is authorized by Section 203C of the INA. And its main goal is really to provide a path to immigration for people from countries that have historically had, low rates of immigration to the U.S. over the previous 5 years. It's basically about diversifying the immigrant pool.
And there's a limit on how many DV visas go out each year, right?
Yes, the typical annual limit is up to 55,000 visas. But because of those provisions in NACARA and also the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2024, the DV 2025 limit is actually a bit lower, around 52,000. Yeah. And these visas get allocated across 6 geographic regions. Plus, there's a rule that no single country can get more than 7% of the total available DV visas in any one year.
So how does the visa bulletin tell us who might actually get a DV visa in June 2025?
It gives us rank cutoffs for each of those 6 regions. So for June 2025, let's see, Africa's cutoff is 42,500, but there are specific lower cutoffs for Algeria, Egypt, and Morocco, which suggests, higher selection rates from those countries within Africa.
Interesting.
For Asia, the cutoff is 8,250, with lower ones for Iran and Nepal. Europe's cutoff is 17,500, with lower ones for Russia and Uzbekistan. North America has a cutoff of 20, specifically for the Bahamas. Oceania is 1,550, and South America Caribbean is 2,300.
So if your rank number is below that cutoff.
Exactly. If your DD lottery rank number for your region is below that specified cutoff, you're currently eligible to move forward with your application.
And these DV statuses, they have a limited shelf life, don't they?
That's a really, really important point. Yes. Yeah. Your entitlement to immigrant status through the DV lottery only lasts until the end of the fiscal year you were selected for.
Which is?
For the DV 2025 selectees, that deadline is September 30th, 2025. They must get their visa by then.
Okay.
And the bulletin explicitly warns that, hey, DV visa availability through the end of the fiscal year, it can't be guaranteed. The numbers could actually run out before September 30th.
So time is of the essence for DV selectees.
Absolutely. Acting quickly is crucial.
The bulletin even gives us a little sneak peek at the DV cutoffs for July 2025. What can we maybe learn from those numbers?
Yeah, looking ahead at July gives us a sense of potential movement. Generally, we see the cutoff numbers tick up slightly for most regions.
Okay.
Which suggests, more DV visas are expected to become available as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year. For example, Africa goes up to 45,000, Asia to 9,000, Europe 19,000. The country specific cutoffs also tend to nudge up a bit. It's helpful for DV applicants just to kind of gauge their chances as the year goes on.
Makes sense. Finally, the bulletin just briefly touches on U.S. government employee special immigrant visas, SIVs. Anything important to note there for June?
Yeah, it just mentions that the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2024, the one that became law last December, might have some implications for certain current and former U.S. government employees working abroad who are applying for SIVs, and maybe some of their family members too.
Okay.
But it clarifies this doesn't affect certain Iraqi and Afghan individuals applying under the specific ISQ and SIV programs related to their service.
Right.
Basically, the bulletin just advises any affected applicants to reach out directly to the U.S. Consular section, where they first filed their application, their Form DS 1884, to get the most current and specific info on their case.
Okay, good advice. Well, we've definitely taken a really comprehensive look at this June 2025 visa bulletin. What would you say is the most critical thing for our listeners to take away from all this information?
I think the key takeaway, really, is that the visa bulletin is just an absolutely essential tool.
Right.
If you're navigating the U.S. immigration system through family or employment preferences, or if you were lucky enough to be selected in the diversity visa lottery, you need to understand this. It gives you that crucial monthly snapshot of where things stand with visa availability and, the likely processing timelines.
And that really important distinction to keep remembering is between those final action dates, when you can actually get the visa, and the dates for filing applications, when you can just start the paperwork, right?
Exactly. And I really can't stress this enough. Always, always check the USCIS website if you are already in the United States and applying to adjust your status. You have to confirm which of those 2 charts applies to you. Don't just assume.
Right. Good final reminder. Looking at all these dates and numbers, it can feel really abstract, almost bureaucratic. But it's just so important to remember that behind every single one of these data points, there's a real person, maybe a whole family, with hopes and dreams about building a new life here. It really puts into perspective the huge logistical effort, but also the profound human stories that are kind of woven into these policies.
Well said.
And of course, for the very latest information, any updates that might happen during the month, the best place to go is always the Bureau of Consular Affairs website. That's travel.state.gov.